So this is 100% how every podcast starts.
Are we live right now?
In case you thought it was fully put together.
I think we just went live officially.
Yeah, we're
live?
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah.
We've been live for a good 30-40 seconds.
Okay.
Get with it, Michaela.
Just in case you guys thought this was an amazingly
Wait,
well put
Claudia's
together
not in
production, we're here to show you that it's messy.
Alright, are we good?
Wait, Michaela.
It's never right. Nothing's ever
Close enough.
perfect.
Close enough.
I think I just broke the stool.
Alright, we're
I'm
live.
having
We're
some
doing.
hip pain.
Welcome to Wild Hearts Podcast. Michaela's having some hip pain. Are you
Just
two
need
having
to
hip pain?
get that out there.
Maybe you need to do some more yoga, Michaela.
I do.
Wow, well, we
I
have
think
just the lady here for you.
Wow. Is that one weird?
No, just
It's
let
like
it
showing
be.
our whole selves.
Yeah,
it's like a lot to handle.
just let it. It's beautiful.
You don't want to tilt it up a little?
No,
No, it's good.
no,
I
it's
think
great.
it's great.
It's
You
wonderful.
think it's great?
magical.
Alright.
Are you feeling comfortable?
Yeah.
That's
A
That's-
little warm in
that's-
my hips doing
yeah.
weird thing, but
That's alright.
other than that, I feel good. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm great. I got to sleep in a little bit this morning because now we're here at noon, so.
Yeah.
No, it's 9 a.m.
Oh wait, I was like, yeah.
It's 9 a.m., guys.
9 a.m. Oh, sorry. I mean,
Yeah,
it's 9 a.m.
Pretend. Oh, the people are coming on though, so it's working out.
I feel. It always takes me a second to like.
All right, just settle in.
Get, yeah, I'm good now.
All right.
Cool. Welcome. Did we say that already?
Yeah. So why don't we just start as we always do? We'll tell her people who we are.
Yeah, because you're live.
Yeah.
I'm live over there.
Cool. So we'll tell your people a little bit about ourselves briefly, and then we'll introduce you
Yeah.
to our people.
You're up.
Hi, all the
Oh,
people.
me? Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, on Ankati's live, I am Michaela. My business is Michaela Jean Photography. I work with adventurous couples, and I do a lot of women's empowerment portraiture. And my other business is this space that we are in, Maple and Moon Creative. We rent out the space to creatives and photographers who need a place to shoot or host workshops. And I'm the other half of Wild Hearts Podcast.
Bam. Hello, Ankati's humans. My name is Sean Adam. I'm also a human. I am the co-host of Wild Hearts Podcast. I also have an inspirational speaking business called Up and Adam Inspirational Speaking, and that is designed off of kind of my life experiences with mental health and kind of overcoming challenges and putting that work out into the world. I additionally have a book called Guts, Grit, and Grind, a mental fitness manual that will be coming out this May. That's myself and 35 other male authors that kind of explain their stories, and it's designed to kind of be like a car manual for anyone going through mental health.
A car manual? Is that what you said?
Yeah, literally, it's designed like, you open up the car manual and you're like, oh, the transmission's broken, go to page 27. This is like,
Sweet.
yeah, this is like, oh, you have depression and anxiety, go to page 27 to hear about Sean and Phil's story with that.
That's
And
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's me. And you are you.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Tell us.
Do you
Hey,
wanna-
Wild Hearts people.
Yeah.
I'm Ankati. I am. We'll start there.
Good place.
Um,
Good place.
I am. Let's see. I'm a yoga teacher. I teach both kind of regular vinyasa yoga as well as booty yoga. That's B-U-T-I, not B-O-O-T-Y. Different. I teach yoga teacher trainings here on the Seacoast through Bar and Soul. I also teach for Yoga Smith. I do sound healing with singing bowls, and I also write a lot these days, primarily poetry.
And she has an angelic voice.
Yeah, I sing a lot.
She forgot that part.
I
so
sing a lot.
It's pretty important one. I mean, if I had some of those recordings right now, I swear to God, remember
We
when we
just
did
play them for you.
what?
We'll just play them for you.
Later. Well, still, I just want the people to know. You know what I mean? You know what we haven't done in a really long time?
What?
How we met the human.
How we met the human.
Yeah.
Let's start that.
Game.
Yeah.
How we met the human.
Human is a big topic of conversation, so
Yeah,
that's my
let's play How
go-to.
we met the human.
I also just wanted to do this because Ankati is a very special human being in my life. We met actually doing booty. Wow,
We did.
that's I forget that sometimes. Yeah, on Fortree Island, I was shaking my ass. and my shorts didn't have a drawstring, so they kept coming down.
Good
So that was the
details
first
to share.
meeting.
Good details.
But
But like at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or like
was
something
7.
really
It
early
wasn't
in the morning.
egregious. I mean, it was early, but it wasn't like egregious. I think it was like 7:30. But yeah, I met you there, and you were, I call you my guardian angel, because very influential person in my life in a very rough time. So that is us.
Thanks, Sean.
My turn to play How I Met the Human.
Come on down.
Well, we just figured this out actually the other day at coffee. That I think the first time I met you was at the restorative yoga class at Yoga Smith with Karen and Shelly,
Yes.
and you were singing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was gorgeous.
And Shelly was like, "This chick's gonna come and take pictures."
And then I think like halfway through, I just laid down in Savasana.
You did.
Sounds about right.
I
That's
was like,
so
this
perfect.
feels better.
That's
Photographies, restorative yoga.
Yeah,
Shavasana.
pick and choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the winner. It's the winner.
Mhm.
So, on next week's episode of How I Met the Human. Well, okay. Let's start with start with like your journey into yoga, because that's such a huge part of your life.
Mm-hmm. I think my journey into yoga is like it is for a lot of people. It's kind of a sideways or like backdoor experience. When I was in college, I went to a small competitive liberal arts school. And coming from like middle of nowhere Maine, it was just an entirely different atmosphere for me to be in. And I started over-exercising. I started running like 8 to 10 to 12 miles a day, every day, no rest. And developed some pretty solid tendonitis in both my knees to the point where like going upstairs was really hard. And a friend of mine was like, maybe you should try this yoga thing. Like the outing club is having a class. You should just come over, maybe it'll help your knees. So I started doing yoga as a way to hopefully fix my knees so that I could get back to running. And over time, as it seems like, again, yoga does for a lot of people, it was like, I think this actually just helps me feel better, like in general.
Yeah.
I, at that point, and for a lot of my life, had struggled with anxiety as well. And found that when I went to yoga, like lo and behold, my anxiety felt better and I slept better. And I can't even say that within the first year or 2 years I like got it, that yoga was a powerful thing. It was just kind of like, I don't know, I keep doing this thing, and like I guess I feel better. But later in college, like my senior year, I got it. It was like, yoga. Yoga is like the thing. So at that point, I became known as the girl who I'd make dinner plans with all my friends, like meet at 6 or something, and I'd show up at 6:30 because I needed to practice yoga and I fell asleep in Shavasana again. But I was like religiously dedicated to it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, when you first started, just because it was kind of this accidental thing and you already seemed to be pretty like competitive with yourself with running. I know when I started yoga, it was all about like, I gotta get in like the pose, like my leg needs to be over my head and like it hurts, but I gotta get there.
Yeah.
Which I also don't think I'm alone. I think that's a lot of human
No.
beings. So I'm curious if that was like your experience to start, or if you were just kind of like fumbling around with it.
When I first started, it was really gentle hatha, like very mellow. So I think it was also something that often happens for people when they first start, where I was like, well, this isn't a workout.
Right.
So like I also need to burn my calories somehow. Later on when I got into Ashtanga, totally. I was a gymnast when I was a kid, so I have a lot of natural flexibility. So yeah, I definitely got to the point where I was like, well, I guess my back just hurts every time I do yoga. I don't know. I guess that's just how yoga is. And then eventually a teacher was like, no, that's because you're pushing too hard. Yeah, I mean, anybody out there who practices yoga, like, we know that the layers of what yoga teaches you, oh my God, they just keep going. Like the time that you hurt yourself and you realize, oh, there were a lot of cues that I was getting from my body that I wasn't listening to, and now here I am. Like, I messed myself up, and it's going to take a while. It definitely has happened over and over, and I'm sure will continue to.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's really cool, though, is just learning. Yeah, I mean, you posted about this morning. This is actually so funny. About listening to your...
I post so fast. It's so bad.
God, it's so good.
You know,
You're just so prolific.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. This is...
Oh, yeah, yes, I remember.
But she literally posted about, like, the cues our body, like, she was, like, you were like, thank you, body, for, like, trying to send me messages.
Yeah.
Because when did anyone in your life ever, at least for me, growing up, teach you that, like, oh, like, when there's stuff going tweaky with your body, like, it's your body speaking to you.
Right.
Like, that never happened.
Right, and I definitely have always been one who it's like, your body will be like, hey, and then you're like, whatever, and then body's like, hey, and then body, like, you know, punches you in the face, and then I would listen. Right, yeah.
I think that's everyone, though. Like, I think, like you said, because nobody teaches you that. Nobody teaches you to listen.
What's the meme on the Insta world? It's like, body is like, hey, I'm hungry and like jittery, and then me is like, maybe I should have some more coffee, or like body's like, I need some food, and you're like, oh well, no. I totally just botched that, but
no, there's well, I don't know. There's one that I was thinking of. It's like your body's like, oh, my like arm hurts or something, and then like, I think we should do this, and then your soul's, or is it your heart or your soul? One of them.
We're all watching. These are like good memes.
Damn it, they are. They're so good. I was like, yes, and laughing, and I thought I had it. Like in my head, there was like a list, and then it just did not come up. But
well.
I hope you guys know what I'm talking about.
You know we're talking about.
But basically, like, if you'd both shut up and just listen to me, I'd give you the answer, kind of thing. Yeah. Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's also. I just want to talk about that too, because it's like being patient with yourself, right, in the unlearning process, right? So like that takes a lot of time to even like get to that point where like, oh, you're like trying to tell me things, I should like listen to that, and then trusting it at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And like even taking a step beyond that, what are you trying to tell me?
Well, that's a tricky part too, trusting it. Like, especially in the kind of like society that we grow up in, where you have a pain or something and you take medicine for it.
Right.
Like, it's hard to kind of like walk that line of, is something actually like really wrong with me that I need to seek medical attention for, or is it just my body speaking to me? You know what I mean?
Right. And so many people have the experiences where they have something going on with their body. They go to the doctor, and the doctor runs a battery of tests and is like, you're fine.
Yeah.
All the tests say you're fine. And the person's like, well, I still feel like hell, but I mean, I guess the doctor says I'm fine, so I guess this is just normal, and then I should just take a lot of ibuprofen, or, whatever, drink more coffee, or take sleeping pills. Oh my God, that's such a chronic one. People who are like, I have a hard time sleeping, and the doctor's like, well, I mean, you're fine, so just take some sleeping pills.
Or like, how many times did
normal.
you go to the doctor when you were little and they were just like, just take Advil, it'll be fine.
Or here's some antibiotics.
Yeah, that too, even worse.
I think that one more. That one.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
But we live in a time where we are encouraged to not trust that inner knowing that something's wrong, and or so often the thing that is wrong is like, we need to sleep more, we need to slow down, and maybe we need to like spend some more quality time with good people, not on our phones. And all those things are things that we are kind of well programmed to feel guilty or ashamed about.
Oh yeah.
You know, the privilege of being able to slow down, or like the privilege of going to a yoga class, or the privilege of sleeping 8 hours, right? How many of us have had conversations with people where they're like, oh my God, I got like 8 hours of sleep last night. It was so great.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, that should be normal.
I know.
Well, it's like the
We're just talking about it.
prioritization.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, yeah, that would be so amazing right now. Actually, I'm gonna go get
We're having an off.
It's an athlete. It's an athlete, yeah.
or 3, but that's alright. Sorry, who's counting?
Your body is, Sean.
Yeah,
True. Yeah, this is an episode for you, Sean.
Well, it was so funny because like, okay, I guess we'll just talk about it this morning. But like this morning, perfect example. I feel like so many things on the outward. Like I've often heard like when your energy is like a little dysfunctional, like that's when things happen in your car, or that's when you like stub your toe, or so something happened in my car this morning. It's in the shop. I had to take an Uber here. I went to climb up a loader to talk to this older guy, Jimmy, at work. Hit my head off of his mirror. Came here, I was like, alright, just trying to keep the positive vibes going, it's all good. And I was like petting these dogs, and there's a rail in the elevator. Just came right up and jacked my back on that. And I'm like,
You have to slow down.
yeah, my body's trying to tell me a lot of things, and I'm not listening, so. I'm not great at it, but I do know that it's a real thing.
It's a practice.
It is a practice.
It's an everyday practice.
And it's not perfect
Yeah.
always.
Oh,
Like
it's
you
never
have
perfect.
to go through the.
Well, I think that's what's so cool though too, is like I'm proud of myself, not necessarily with like how smoothly or efficiently things went, but just like the patience, right? And the gentleness on myself, not like, oh, you're a fuck up or this or that. It's just like, all right, just gonna, it's okay, you know, it's not perfect. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna keep doing it anyway.
I've only just recently gotten on the audiobook train, which like, I don't know what I was thinking, why I haven't been doing that for longer, but I'm listening to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a...
Say, you can say it.
I can say it? Okay,
Yeah,
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes.
I didn't ask
With
that.
the
Not
dark.
giving up.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Good job though.
Yeah, thanks. And a big part of what he's talking about is like, life has problems. That's just it. There are problems. There are struggles in life. We can't pretend that it's ever going to get perfect, and it's the pressure that we put on ourselves for it to be perfect that makes those problems suck way more than if we were like, there's a problem. Okay, like what am I gonna do? My car, needs to go to the shop. I'm supposed to be at this place. Okay, well, I'm gonna figure out what to do about it instead of throw a temper tantrum and like now think that, right? It can often be this spiritual bypassy thing that we do, and we're like, oh my God, like things in my life are going wrong, like I must have pissed off the universe, and like now I need to go to a silent retreat for 2 weeks or something and like repent, or I don't know, like I need to get right with my angels, rather than
So
just be
legit.
like, I don't know, some like shit happened to my car, like
Yeah. That's so funny.
I love that you just said that. It's so, because I mean, we've all been there, right? Like we can.
Yeah, totally.
I'm laughing because there was a point in my life where like that was it,
Yeah.
But this morning because there was like some of those thoughts at first, and then I'm like, okay, that's like not the case. This is all somehow happening for me. I don't understand it in the moment.
right,
And what's the solution?
yeah.
And I just like kept it as simple as that. And maybe it's just because I'm really tired and I don't even have the energy to get upset.
It's
But
the subtle art of not giving
yeah,
up.
I was just kind of like, yeah, fuck it.
Here we are.
Yep, exactly, and we're here, so
Yeah, we made it.
yeah, it's amazing.
Everybody made it.
Yes. So your journey, you accidentally got into it, and then
It's true.
why are you guys making fun of me? I'm just kidding. So you got into it, and then kind of talk to them as you progressed through it. Like you talked about the layers, right? And like talk about how it's kind of led you to the next thing, because even now you're doing like this Boston movement, which is like almost like a form of Ido Portal, correct?
Correct. Ido Portal,
So, which is-
trained folks. High body of movement.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's like that's where you are now, but talk about kind of that transgression through that, because it's been How many years now for you?
I mean, I've been practicing since I was, since I was 18. I found yoga when I was 18 or 19, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has continued to be just, and I feel super blessed that it has been this way, but it's been an exploration the whole way along. After college, when I moved to the White Mountains, lo and behold, small town, one yoga studio, the teacher, me, and one other person. So I spent a good couple of years there studying really intensively that way. And then when I moved to Montana, found myself in a different community that offered me a different language to study and practice. Found my way eventually, we won't go through the whole long story, but to yoga teacher training at a community in Costa Rica, where I showed up thinking I was pretty hot shit, being I can do back bends, I can do fancy arm balances, I can do yoga, and whoa, I was the first one on the floor in a puddle of tears in my training. First one. Recognizing how much deeper and how much more power there is to yoga than just doing fancy poses. And it's kind of crazy to me to think that it took almost 10 years of practice to get there. 9 years. To get to the point where I was oh, it's not about pushing myself to a full split or whatever it may be. That was a huge pivot point for me. That was a huge pivot point to have teachers stand in front of me and go, actually, you might get more out of the practice if you back out of all the stuff that you've been doing and simplify and start from the beginning and get into the subtleties of what your practice feels like rather than going for what it looks like. And that was something I'd never really considered. I knew that it helped my anxiety.
Yeah.
But I'd never really considered beyond that, subtle body. How does my breath move? How does it feel to be in this pose? Rather than can I get the full bind? And can I perfectly stuck my knee over my ankle? And that shift has really influenced how everything has gone forward. When I found Booty, it was because I was on YouTube searching yoga dance because I loved yoga and I loved dance and I knew there had to be a way to fuse them because it just felt so celebratory and so good and so playful in my body to move in that way. And then getting into stuff with body of work, which that's a very new pursuit for me. It's a new way of exploring movement of oh, okay, if I have a teacher, show me some crazy way to roll across the floor, can I figure that out? Can I get my body to be strong and move in that way? And a lot of it's brain, also strength. But overall, yeah, just continuing to get more and more and more subtle. What layer can I tune into my own experience and strength and flexibility, and also listen to those cues in my body. My body's no, not that one. Don't do that one.
Yeah.
Is there any real symbolism that you recognize in your life with this? You have these teachers telling you that maybe you'll get more out of the practice if you back out. Is there any big symbolism in your personal life? Hearing that.
Yeah.
Deep sigh. Woo. Woo. Yep. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I probably always and forever will identify as something of a recovering perfectionist. Just this idea of always gotta go for the best and the perfect and the if there's someone in a book doing it, you know, and it looks like that, well then, God damn it, I gotta do it and it's gonna look like that. You know, I mean, I remember in college, I got a C on a paper once. It like nearly wrecked me. It was like, I do not get C's on papers. What?
Yeah.
So having someone say like, actually, you might get more from not looking like the person in the book. You might get more from slowing down. Hey, what would happen if you don't do 1,000 vinyasas? And a big part of that is that, if we get into the like Buddhist side of things, right? The non-attachment is, can I separate like how I identify myself from some external standard of achievement or perfection, or like, what if I'm not a perfect yogi who looks like the person in the book? Like, am I still okay? Yeah, totally. In my mind, was I? No.
Yeah. I think there's two questions I have, kind of tapping into the question Michaela had, is you talked about like feeling into your practice. So I feel like so many of us in life set these like goals, right? Of like what we want to achieve. And we're not paying attention to how it's feeling.
Right.
And, you know, it's not like it's going to be perfect, you know, today's a perfect example of that. But it's just this idea of like, and maybe not even attaching to how it should feel a certain way, but there is such a thing as like 8 hours of sleep, like, shouldn't be like a gift like that. Should be kind of a norm, or, you know, feeling good or feeling constantly stressed, or like you know what I mean, like. And I feel like, again, knowing you, because I remember you talked about when you first started your business in Montana, you were like, blah. Which, I mean,
Does that what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how you describe it. Yeah. Which I can totally relate to. You know, so just kind of like the evolution of that to like just where you are now, and like obviously you're like we were talking about when we hiked last year. You're like, I'm like so proud of myself. Like I'm doing this and this and this, and I highly doubt you're that person anymore. You know, I'm sure there's still pieces that there, but you just seem to be this much more calm presence and just like this faith and this trusting in the flow, and things just keep happening and opportunities keep showing up.
Yeah, and I think that last thing that you just said has been crucial for me to keep reminding myself of. It's like, yeah, when I started my business when I was in Montana, oh my God, I operated on the like, you know, work more hours and you'll be more successful model. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of us, for a lot of people when we start endeavors. It's just like all in 120%, you just stop sleeping for a while and like make your thing happen. And to some degree, you know, when you first start something, that's part of it. Like things come up and surprise you. I'm sure with you opening the space recently, right? Like it's the night before the opening and you're like, shit, like we still gotta whatever. Yeah. But that's not sustainable. And these days, I think the feeling into it thing, I know sometimes it'll get partway through the day and I'm sitting at my computer writing or something and it's like, oh, my shoulders are like in my ears and I'm not breathing and I feel like shit, I have a headache. It's like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. This feels terrible.
My body's telling me something.
My body's telling me something. Yeah, and I probably can't really focus if I'm not breathing and my shoulders are in my ears and I like forgotten to eat. Forgotten to eat.
Yeah.
Can't get my words right, you know?
Yeah. But that's it too though, is I mean we're all kind of striving to operate from like our highest self, right? And when we do these things that are kind of out of alignment and like are just out of balance and pushing too much, like oftentimes we don't say our words right, or we crash our cars, or we, you know, do these crazy things. And it's not to say you don't keep going, but I think if what's been super important, and this is kind of something you taught me, is like take a moment to like breathe it in. Like, what's it look like? What's it feel like? Where are your shoulders? Where's your body? What's this? Like, what does it actually feel like in there? You know, and then kind of readjust, because it's, in my opinion, like business, especially small business, is just like a big science experiment.
Oh,
Like,
totally.
I'm trying this. All right, this is like 85 hours. Okay, well, it's like sort of working, but I'm like sort of dying. Okay, so like let's try something a little different, you know. And it's just this constant shifting, you know, which I think is ultra important. And so it all comes back to that feeling into it. You know?
Yeah, and also I feel fortunate that at this point in my career life, I have like my own case study of my life, you know, of like, oh, so there was that time period where I thought I was working my ass off in a way that would make me successful. Turns out it just sucked and I was broke. Like, well, okay, that didn't work. You know, I focused on just being like the best damn yoga teacher I could be when I started teaching on the Seacoast, fine-tuning my teaching and like just getting myself out there and teaching and doing events where I could, and then the opportunities started to come in, not because I was like up until 3 a.m. every day working on my website, but because I just focused on being a really good yoga teacher, because that's what I do. And then the opportunities come.
Speaking of being on the Seacoast, because I mean, so obviously everyone pretty much has been on the podcast so far everybody probably lives on the Seacoast right now, and our community is so powerful. So you grew up in Maine, you left, and then you came back.
Yep.
So can you kind of talk about how being back on the Seacoast and maybe this community in this area kind of shaped your business and how it transformed a little bit?
Yeah. When I came back, it was almost an entirely fresh start, which is interesting because I left when I was, I left when I went to college, and then when I came back, I knew like 2 people, and went to Zev. It was Zev Yoga at that point. Now it is Yoga Smith, for a class. Met Jonas Amberger, who owned Zev Yoga, now owns Shiloh Farm. And took a class with him. We like had tea or something at another point, and he was like, well, do you want to teach here? And I kind of looked at him and was like, you don't know me, you don't know my teaching. And he was like, no, it's okay, it's a feeling, it's a feeling. I was like, okay. So I started teaching at Zev, and this community has really shown me that when I just like bring my open heart, I mean, when we talked, I was like, I just moved back from a commune in Costa Rica. I like don't know what I'm doing with my life. And he gave me a place to land. And that has continued to happen. That when I just show up, people are like, cool, well, do you want to do this thing? And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, great. It's that connection. I mean, we've heard this 1,000 times, right? It's not like, it's about who you know and how you connect with them and how you are willing to show up and support them and be there for them. And you guys know this, like, we're talking into a microphone that your community showed up and supported you for.
True that.
Thank you. So true. Yeah, and it was even again community, like you had 100 people here on Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night.
You know,
so that was insane.
It's just incredible.
Where?
Yeah, in here. It was crazy.
Yeah, I had to go outside at one point. I got let's just stuff you for me.
Sean and my dad.
I just
couldn't
talked
hang
to her
any
dad,
longer.
you know, just like, can't do it.
Well, another beautiful example of that is your crystal sound bowls, singing bowls.
Singing bowls.
Singing bowls.
Yeah.
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 Tell us about that. I don't know if I cut you off.
No, it's cool. I was searching for something, so it's perfect. Good job.
Yeah, I've been singing singing mantra to my classes for a while they were in Shavasana, and for me it seems like a big motivator for different projects has been when people have been like, hey, you need to do more with this, or like, we want we want more of this.
Mhm.
So after a while of people saying, when are you going to do more than just sing in Shavasana? I played around with different instruments, and guitar is really hard. Any of you who play guitar, like, good work. It's really hard. I tried. I had played crystal singing bowls when I was living in Costa Rica, and it just felt like that was the right path. So I got real brave one day and put up a GoFundMe page, like did all the research to figure out how much it would cost and all that sort of stuff. Put a GoFundMe page, and yeah, the community bought me a set of singing bowls. Not only did the community buy me a set of singing bowls, but also someone in the community gifted me a singing bowl.
So cool.
And like people who I met once, people who had come to a class once. It was the most humbling experience ever. I would like open my email and start crying because it would be like people donated,
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, people are just giving me money to do a thing that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like, it still blows my mind.
How is that feeling of like receiving that? Because I feel like it's so common for people to be like, oh no, like I couldn't accept that. Do you know what I mean? Like that's something that I'm super practicing in my life, is like this idea of like being open to like receiving help and like when people offer.
Yeah. Especially money, right?
Yeah, because it's a weird conversation.
Well, it's not like it was
Money's
like,
tough.
they were like, wasn't that like $1,200?
Yeah. It was not a small
Like
amount.
it's $5. Yeah.
No.
It wasn't like a kazoo, like
Yeah, no.
in the dollar store.
I wasn't asking people for like bagels,
Yeah.
Yeah. When I say I got real brave one day, I'm not kidding. It was like I had to sit down in front of the computer and be like, okay.
Yeah.
Can do this.
Yeah.
And if nobody donates, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine if nobody donates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to practice regularly. Like, okay, just say thank you. You can say thank you a lot. Just say thank you a lot. And try and stay like soft and open in that place. Not from a place of like, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Right.
But from a place of, you made an empowered choice. Like, to click on the links and do the things and whatever. So thank you for that choice. That was a choice that you made because you wanted to support something I wanted to do. But yeah, I totally hear you. It's such a practice. Receiving is such a practice still. Always will be.
I think what's so cool about that is you talk about the like person that like one-to-one class, right? Or there's a few of those, and oftentimes we hear this idea of the ripple effect. And I think sometimes, especially when you're teaching or when you're like giving wisdom or talk or doing photography or whatever it is, like sometimes you don't always get that like instant validation back, right? Like you never know, what by you showing up in the world, following your heart and doing your passions, like how that's affecting people, right? And then to have that reflected back to you, like even more special experience. But I think just that whole point of that's why it's so important, guys. It's just like, that's why we do this, right? Follow your heart, like because by Michaela opening this business, by you doing yoga, by me doing the speaking, by all the other guests doing what they're doing, like they're giving you permission, right, to chase what you want and to make it more tangible. And I think that, again, we don't always get to see the impact of this, but it's so cool to have that reflected back and just to like, I think sometimes, again, you don't always see it, but just like having that faith that it's gonna go out
And
there.
the faith too that maybe like you are gonna see it like down the road, like in the future, or things that you're doing in the present moment because it's coming from your heart. In 2 years, even 5 years, it's gonna have an impact. Like I just like that quote on that, if you saw yourself the way the rest of the world saw you, stand by your own beauty. That's like the foundation of my business now. I just 2 days ago came across the post on my first blog that I ever started from 2014 where that quote came from. And like now it's the foundation of like what I do. Do you know what I mean? Just like stuff like that where it's like, that's so cool to be able to like know that something that, a seed that you planted years ago is like blossoming into something that you're doing now.
Yeah.
That's like, one more thing, I'm sorry, that just like started a whole nother rabbit hole, but like the patience, right? Like the patience of what we're doing. Like you talked about, what'd you say, 9 years before it was like that real like,
Right.
oh. And I know, and I totally take accountability for this for the large part of my life. It's this idea of instant gratification. And wanting like the instant win. Yeah, I mean we grew up in it, but I also like to like really speak in I statements, like that's me. But we grew up in that culture, and so many people want it, right? And if you aren't willing to, like I think who said it was probably like Wayne Dyer or something. It's like you can have all these illusory surface level experiences, or you can like choose a couple of things to like really dive below the layers as you talk about. And I just think that becomes such a special experience, and that's where you just keep discovering these different things that like somehow connect the dots going backwards.
Yeah.
What are so to turn this into a question, what are like, maybe I can say 3 like really like some of those layers that have been like super impactful? Like obviously I think Costa Rica might be one, but can you talk about that? I don't even know if there's 3 on there, but I don't know, it's probably you don't even.
Big question.
Yeah, big question.
I know, it's like loaded, but
as you were phrasing it, I was like, whoa. Okay.
yeah, I know.
Uh,
I'm like sweaty talking about it.
No.
it's also really warm in here.
Is it? Okay.
It is. I've told you. It's really
Okay,
warm.
alright. Well, I just started getting sweaty, so I think it has to do with it.
I also have like
How
fleece socks
intense the
on, which is
question
my
was.
problem. It's a personal issue I currently have.
Yeah. Man. So Costa Rica, for sure, was a huge turning point for me. The first time when I went for my teacher training, I had no clue what I was signing myself up for. I knew I was going for a teacher training, but I didn't know that I was going to a community that was founded on doing deep personal inquiry work. That I would be not only surrounded by a whole bunch of other yogis, but a community of people, like 80 people live there, with their family, the whole 9, to meditate together daily and to do all these deep workshops and to live in that way just all the time. And for me, up until that point, I think kind of the yogic lifestyle existed when I went to the studio, and then I went about my normal life when I was not on the mat or in a workshop or in a whatever. So living in that community where, at any given point there was some sort of transformative workshop going on where people were in deep process about something in their lives, or doing a cleanse, or they were whatever it might have been, gave me that lens of it's possible to live in full presence and full openness all the time, rather than to go into a workshop or go into a class or engage with my partner at the time and then be all right, now I'm gonna go into the rest of the world, I'm just gonna close off and deep put my smile on and everything's hunky-dory all the time. It was the first time that I was really invited to a space where you could sit down at lunch next to somebody who you didn't know and be hey, how's your day going? And then actually give you a real answer, not just hey, thanks, that's yours. Or someone could be actually, it's a really hard day for me. I really don't feel like talking right now. And you could be oh, cool, okay. That's not about me. That's totally honor and respect that. And that has continued to challenge me, especially when I move back to the seacoast. Like, I love you all, New Englanders, but we are champions of how are you? Fine, thanks. How are you?
Yeah.
Right.
And like hard workers. Like, I don't know if you noticed this, like living when you lived in Montana, but like when I lived in Colorado, like I just noticed how different the lifestyle was.
Yeah.
Like on the East Coast, it's like work your ass off
Yeah.
all the time. Work your ass off. Sometimes head down, like don't say hi to who you're walking like by on the sidewalk. And like out west, the lifestyle was just a little bit more. I just remember being like the first one to work every day, and people would be like, "Why are you like on time?" Everyone would roll in like 15 minutes late, and it's like it wasn't like a huge deal, you know. It was just like a way more relaxed, walk by people, say hi in the streets if they're a stranger kind of vibe.
Yeah, like actually make eye contact with people. OMG.
Yeah. True. It's true though. We're very much stuck in our own ways a lot of the time on the East Coast. If we're generalizing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're generalizing.
Yeah.
Very much.
It's
Big
okay.
generalizations.
It's okay.
But it also then means that there's such great potential when we actually sit down with someone, even if they're a friend we've known for a while. I mean, we were sitting in the coffee shop, whatever, Friday, Thursday, whenever that was, and a friend of ours came over and was sitting down and talking to us, and she was like, wow, it's really nice to talk with you guys. You actually like give eye contact, and you're like here, and you're paying attention. And that can be such a powerful thing to bring into our lives. And it's really amazing to see how, how quickly we can disarm that like New Englander closedness when you are just willing to like sit with someone and be like, hi, I'm here.
And it's so funny too, because you talk about, we get stuck in our ways because it's like you create, a story, right? Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that.
Right.
We love saying we're busy.
Like, are you kidding me? I don't
Oh my God.
I don't have 5 minutes to make eye contact and like make a smile. But it's also, I can speak from my own experience too. Like, there's just some days where you're like, it's like turmoil inside, and you're like afraid to show up in that way because it's not necessarily always. You do get so much that fine, great, thanks. That it doesn't feel necessarily safe to be like, well, actually, since you asked. It sucks. There's few and far between. But what it's so interesting, such an interesting topic that there's not space or time to do that. And again, generalizations here, but I found that myself.
Is there a piece of advice that you would offer people who are listening right now to kind of set that foundation for having those? Because I feel like so many people want to have these deeper conversations. They want to step into this place, but there's fear behind it. I don't know always what is behind it, but people just close themselves off. Is there a piece of advice that you would offer for people who are I want to be in that place?
I think the fear behind it comes from, if we circle back to the whole perfection thing, right? That we all want to appear, and we live in I was just listening to a piece on NPR about this. We live in a culture where we are bombarded by people's Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds and whatever of the perfect parts of their lives. And you both are doing huge work in sharing all the flavors of your lives. But I think there's a fear that if we bring our messiness, that people are gonna see behind the magic curtain, as it were, and be like, oh, you're a shit show? Well, I don't want to hang out with you.
Fuck. But it's the exact opposite.
It's the exact opposite.
Yeah. People are like, I get, I relate with you.
Right. People are like, hallelujah, me
Thank
too.
God, I'm not the only one.
It's so funny that you guys are saying this. Because, so I've been going through this lately. Is even though I cognitively, emotionally, on a soul level understand all that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't still show up.
Oh, for sure.
And I think so to even speak on that is there's certain areas where you're willing to share your vulnerability, right? Maybe it's you can even bring this back to childhood conditioning. Sadness was okay in the household, but anger wasn't. or opposites, right? Like you could be joyful, but you couldn't be this. And, you know, in speaking about myself, I know anger and sadness are the hard ones for me to like show up vulnerably for. Because I know my anger for me is like intense. It kind of scares me sometimes. So like I have this idea of like, oh, if I get angry, I don't know.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah, who knows? And like, can anyone hold that space? Am I gonna scare them away? Like, are they gonna run for the hills? You know, so it's man, it's just such a practice. Such a practice.
And it goes back to we all just want to be in connection. Yeah. We want to feel loved. We want to feel like we belong. And there's the fear, like you said, if you show up in your anger, that you're going to be abandoned. That person's going to say like, oh, you're unsafe, or I feel unsafe with you, or like you're too much, or fucking praise, you're too much. That right.
My body did weird things.
That if we show up in any way other than, we're gonna get esoteric here, other than the way we think the other people want us to show up.
Ooh, there it is.
Yeah. Which is impossible for us to know.
Yeah. It's none of your
I'm
business.
imagining that I can like psychically get in your head and be like, so today I think Michaela needs me to be, you know.
So true.
And then and Michaela's sitting over there being like, well, today I think I'm coding. And then we're just like, we're both putting on our chameleon suits.
Trying to mind read one another.
And like hanging out and being like, am I doing this right? I don't know.
And then you're both anxious.
Do you like me?
Yeah.
Do you like my chameleon suit? Like, I hope so.
Yeah. It's so true though. It is so true. It is so true.
Oh my god, this is so great.
Right? Rather than being like, today I am a blue chameleon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you are yellow. And like, what's up?
But
What's it like to be yellow today?
Yesterday I was that color, so like I get what it's like.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, I needed to hear this so
Yeah.
bad.
What color are you today?
Gray maybe. Gray.
Oh my
Gray.
goodness.
Is that like dead?
Maybe not. No, I don't know. Brown.
He's brown. He's brown.
He's brown today.
I mean, I'm alive, but it's like it's just like really weird. Just like you know that weird emoji face I've been sending you. I might even send it to you. It's like the face was like.
Oh yeah, the one that like.
Yeah, that one.
I'm glad you both demonstrated. Thank you.
I mean, it's just so because it's actually if you saw it. Okay, so now I'm gonna like challenge. I'm gonna show it to you after. I'm gonna, like, challenge you to try and make it. 'Cause it's,
People know which one it is. It's like
It's just like a little.
you want your lips to go this way and your face to turn that way. And I don't know why my thumb was like sticking out this way.
oh my
that's
god!
good,
Well, if
dang.
I wasn't sweating, now I really am.
It's a slight problem.
But honestly, it's amazing how spirit works sometimes, and just like hearing what you need to hear. Because, yeah, I feel like there's just been this. Even for myself, I just want to talk about this real quick. Is like I feel like I've been going nonstop. Like my schedule's been crazy, and I've just been really tired and like spread thin. And like again, that's my own accountability. I'm doing it. I'm choosing it. But not showing up as my best. And even people at work being like, oh, where's Mr. Cheery Pants? Or like, why are you hangry? Or this or that. And it's like.
See, but I would challenge you on that. I think sometimes when we are fucking exhausted and we don't have the energy to be chameleons, that's when it's like, okay, can you just accept yourself as you are right now? You're hangry. Okay.
Well, so yes, because I have just been letting those emotions out, but to hear people be like, oh, you're not like this person that you always are, and that, like we want you to be, and it's like, yeah, I'm not. Like, basically, like, take it or leave it kind of thing. It's like I just don't even have the energy. Like, I'm not here to please you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's like a big pattern I'm trying to let go is like the people pleasing and like trying to show up as like Mr. Perfect. Again, I'm perfectionist too.
Yep.
You know, it's so hard to let go of.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, I'm a fucking mess sometimes.
Yep. Yep.
How's it going? Do you love me? I hope so.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most powerful experiences that I had when I was in Costa Rica, I did this workshop where we did It's called The Path of Love. If any of you ever want to do it, it's amazing. We did a lot of what's called exposure work, where you stand up in front of a group of people and share about whatever different aspects of your life. And towards the end of the workshop, after like days already of doing this, we had to get up and share something about our lives that we felt like made us unlovable.
Yeah.
Right. And I was so struck by sitting there and listening to people share and realizing the experience in myself as they were sharing these things that made them feel unlovable. I was like, oh my God, I love you more.
Yeah.
For knowing that that's happened in your life, and yet here you are, the person that you are. And that you've been carrying this around in a bucket of shame, thinking that if you tell all of us about this, that we are going to shun you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, so if I can feel more love towards these people hearing these stories, what about mine? What about my buckets of shame?
I feel like this is turning into a deep
I
therapy
feel like
session.
I feel like too though, like in those moments you not only respect and love people more, but you become more connected to them and realize whatever you are have going on in your life that you feel ashamed about or struggle with, what you personally are going on might be different, but it's the same feeling. Like it's the same like feeling that you feel as that person, and that just brings you that much closer to a group of people. I mean, that's like exactly what I do at the workshops that I've been doing. It's like you go into a room with like strangers and then you leave feeling so connected and like less alone by 100-fold.
And being like, what's her name again?
Yeah. Can we stay connected forever? Yeah.
You know what I've always found interesting? And maybe this is a perfectionist mindset, but I feel like when you listen to these stories, like, you guys have seen Zach on here, so you know my cousin, right? Like, there's such a soft spot, like, so much love for that fucking kid, it's not even funny. Like, he's like, I feel like he's my brother. Like, every time I talk about him, I tear up. But, what he's gone through, like, from a societal standard, like, we could put all these labels on him, right? And have zero compassion for him. But it's like, I know for me, it's just like, I just want to hug him.
Yeah.
That's it. I just want to hug him and love him. But, like, why then sometimes I ask myself, why is it so hard to then do that for myself? And that's the challenge, right? Like, that's the work, because I think a lot of times we're our own worst critic. We all know that. And it's like, why, like, that's the practice, is like, think of like, I've oftentimes thought about like, would I ever, like, the stuff I say to myself or the way I judge myself, would I ever judge someone else like that?
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I think a million people have said it, but if you talk to other people the way you talk to yourself, you would have no friends.
Yeah. Ooh.
If we talk to other people,
Or
the
there
way
was
we talk to
another,
ourselves.
or there was another one of that, if like, or sometimes even the way the words that came out of your mouth were like instantly tattooed on your skin. How much more mindful would you be?
Well, but that's like a real thing though. Like I feel like that's like, okay, for example, like I had really bad skin issues all last year, and it's like I feel like the way that I was talking to myself is what caused that. You know what I mean? So that like is a tattoo that you're like putting on your skin. Like the way it's like a plant. Like you speak love to a plant, it will grow. And like it's the same thing. The way that you speak to yourself, it may not show up as your skin. It might show up as stomach problems or headaches, or like it could be anything. But that's so. I just think it's so true. And where were we going with that? The way that you were speaking to your friends. Yeah, you wouldn't. You would be alone. And
Matt Kahn, who I love him. Look him up on YouTube, Kahn. He talks about, the moments where we are afraid, or the moments we are in self-doubt, or the moments we deserve more love, not less. Yeah. And yet we so often, like, it's like a self-flagellation thing.
We don't feel deserving of it.
Right?
That's so interesting. It is like just such this paradox, right? Like, if I do X, like, for example, let's just say in a perfect world, I like perfectly planned to grab my backpack and I didn't hit the berm in my car and it all just went smooth. I would have loved myself like hardcore, like great job, nice play.
Yeah, you
good
get
job.
more love now.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the way I did it, I mean, not that I didn't give myself love, but it's like it's harder to like keep myself in a space of like love because and I mean that's just programming. Instantly wants to be like, wow, you're a fuck up. Like, what the fuck did I do wrong? Angels, let's go repent. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, that comes back to like childhood, right? Like when we do something right, we like usually would get a reward, or like we do something well in school and we get a good grade. So like we're used to receiving more love when our life goes according.
Right, and because we're trying to get love, especially when we're kids, we're trying to figure out what we need to do to get love.
Yeah.
And some of us develop really fucked up patterns, you know, the kids who like figure out that if they bash their head on the floor, they get attention.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, it's so crazy how that stuff just manifests moving forward, and why it is such a practice to be able to, I mean, really it is. It's like the process, I've said this to so many people, the process of becoming is unbecoming everything you thought you were. So, wow, that got so deep. Yes.
We ran out of Instagram Live.
That's all right. You only get an hour.
You can
So
restart it if you want.
I wanted to talk to you, kind of about as you've gone through the layers, and as you've progressed through your journey, just this level of like being able to trust yourself more, and trust this, what we like to call magic. Intuition.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could share the owl story. We just want to share some Harry Potter magic with you guys this morning, as I like to call it.
Straight up.
Yeah.
And I think this is just like, obviously, Ankati's going to share an awesome story, and I like to call it Harry Potter magic, but this is just like one example of just like trusting yourself. Even when it seems like,
ridiculous.
Woo-woo. You know what I mean?
So woo-woo.
So yeah, I'll let you take the mic here.
Yeah. In my late 20s, I guess, when I was living in Missoula, my partner at the time and I would go tracking a lot. There are a lot of mountain lions and fun things that live in the woods, and we would go see if we could follow them around, mostly mountain lions. And we went out in the winter and found a pair of wolf tracks pretty close to town, which was really exciting because their wolves are still repopulating Montana. And we followed them quite a ways off trail, like off the main corridor. And very uncharacteristically, we were unprepared, and neither of us had flashlights, headlamps, and I think this was in the days before everybody's phones also had flashlights. It must have been. So we found ourselves standing on top of a ridge, looking down at like the lights of town far away, having no clue where we were at sunset in the dark. And trying to figure out like how the hell we were gonna find our way back to the car, or if we were gonna try to bushwhack to town, or what else we were gonna do. And I heard a barred owl call kind of over my shoulder in the forest, and being woo-woo, I turned to my partner at the time and was like, we need to follow the owl. And fortunately, he's also very woo-woo because he was like, okay.
Alrighty then, let's do it.
So we followed the owl. It would call and then fly and then call again, and we would follow it through the woods. Apparently, we couldn't find our footprints or tracks, because that would have been like the logical thing to do, would have been to follow our tracks back, but I don't know, apparently we couldn't do that. Dark, yeah, maybe. And eventually the owl met up with two other owls. We could hear the two other owls calling. They found one another, and the last time that it called and flew and landed and was with the other owls, we looked down and it had brought us back to the fence line. And the fence line, we had to just basically follow down back into the recreation area, which is where our car was parked. So, yeah, I definitely cried and like had a good conversation, gratitude with the owls, and Joshua like bent down to tie his shoe and the owl flew across the moon, and like,
It's
oh
so
god,
crazy.
it was totally Harry Potter moment.
Yeah.
But one of those crazy examples of like, I don't know why, this feels ridiculous, and I don't know what else to do, so
Yeah.
we're gonna follow some owls in the woods.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's
that's
so cool.
first of all, it's cool, but it's just like that's life, right? I mean, there's like so many of those pings that we get. We call them pings. You can call it intuitive moments, but there's so many of them that are just like, you get this thing that seems absolutely ridiculous, so outside of like what the norm is or whatever it is,
Logic,
like following
rationale,
owls
whatever.
and
Yeah.
you know, it's to get yourself to trust that. And again, it's just like anything else. It's a practice. Because I feel like in my experience, it just keeps getting stranger and stranger.
Yeah.
And you're like, like, really, dude? Like, so it's always this new element of like taking a leap of faith.
Yep.
And I think it's so funny. I've heard this before too. I think Eric Thomas says this. It's like, I wish I could tell you it's going to get easier, but it doesn't. You just get stronger and you just have more faith and more experience and more wisdom to be able to make better decisions. And I recently heard this one too, like spiritual maturity is more about seeing the crossroads when it happens and knowing better based on experience and wisdom, like not having to like experience things, you know, like a lot of wisdoms comes from like experiencing like the tragedy or the shitstorm or whatever it is and learning from that. But like getting to this point where you're like, okay, like you can almost foresee how these paths will go to some regard and making that.
Or saying, I think in that case, and in many cases, when I went to Costa Rica for the first time, I knew nothing about Pachamama. It was just like, I kept looking at the website and being like, I just feel like that's where I need to go, and I don't know why. I just kept coming back to it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I went. Even though, right, rationale would have been like, you know nothing about this place, and you're gonna go by yourself, really. Recognizing we can't always foresee because there are infinite possibilities out there that we don't yet know how to imagine.
That's crazy.
Random turn here.
Go for it.
Where did your like love and maybe like need for poetry come from? I say need because like writing for me is like that. It's like I just like I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it is how I process the world, I think. That somehow, I mean, there will be days where I sit down, I have so many journals, it's silly. Where I sit down with the one where I like write my feelings, and then I'll pick up the other one, which looks very similar. And I need to write it as a poem because somehow that expresses it better, or like more succinctly in using the turn of phrase that poetry affords. It better like captures whatever it is I'm feeling, almost in a way of like, by putting it down on the paper, I get to explain it to myself. Like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Like, that's what this is like right now. Or this is something that I, find really wonderful right now. Or like when I write about nature, it's that feeling of, I love sunrises and sunsets. That feeling of a sunrise and sunset is just like, oh my God, I can't even hold it all in. So I've got to try to like put it out on paper somehow. And sometimes I write it on paper and I'm like, that nowhere near captures it. But sometimes it gets close. Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic writes a lot about the process of like the muse coming through. And oftentimes that's how poetry feels for me.
You gotta get it before
You gotta get it, yeah. It's like, I've walked, I mean, when I walk my dog in the woods, I like walked back to my house, like repeating things to myself.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Don't forget it. Keep repeating it. Or like voice memoed to myself, or whatever, so many different times, because it's just like it swoops in, and you gotta like
It's gone.
put it on paper
Yeah.
first.
Well, I think that's why it's writing in general. You could call it poetry, writing essays is such a gift, because I know for me, and again, you're very influential in helping me find my emotional language. Is like so many times we don't have the words, right, to describe that feeling. And in my eyes, when I look at it, it's like kind of like a courageous exploration. And when you share that, oftentimes we find the words through other people's writing,
Yeah.
or a movie, or this, and you're like, ooh, that's it. That's it. That's what I was feeling. Those are the words I was looking for that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Because again, it's this step-by-step process of like learning, like, ooh, like, cause I remember we used to sit at your coffee table, like, I feel bad. Okay, like, what does bad feel like? And being like just trying to like cringe through it, because I didn't have words.
Yeah.
So to me, like, again, being my own experience, I feel like it's like this very courageous exploration, and truly it's like a gift, what you both give, you know, through your words.
Thank you.
That's so cool, because I think always coming back to this like idea of like your genius and like being able to step into it and share what you like. I think there are people who have such a gift, but they're afraid of sharing it sometimes. And I think you saying that maybe could be like a hint for people to be like, oh, like if I step out of that fear and do share these words or whatever it may be, like maybe that is going to touch somebody in a way who needs it.
It could be painting, music,
anything. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of these, as you go through the layers of your emotional expression, and truly allow yourself to be human and feel like the full range of that, that's where like the creative arts just can, like, I used to wonder how can you look at a painting and like be moved? Like, what the fuck is that? Honestly, like, you just stare at a painting and you start fucking crying, like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then it became, I still haven't had that experience, but like music, right? Like listening to Les Brown, rock, like literally shattered to like just felt like someone punching me in the chest. Like that's how heavy the feeling was. Or like music that can make you cry, or like can get you angry, or get you pumped up, or just to like it's such a gift. Like it's such a blessing to even be able to experience that and have that be influential for you. You know what I mean?
And I think something that you just spoke to as well, I mean, part of the gift of that, and in all of us being in kind of a creative economy of sharing whatever our creative expression is, like for you with photography too, we're all helping each other access a fuller range of emotional experience or like human experience. You know, by being able to read your stories, I don't necessarily have the like same direct experience that you do or that you do, but there's something that it might touch in me, some part of me that's like, oh, I recognize the flavor of that. And then I get to feel whatever that like chest shattering experience, or I get to feel when you were chronicling your experience with the pageant. Like, obviously I've never been in a pageant, but I get to feel that like okay, here we go.
It's happening.
Like rawness of stepping into an experience. Or I think one of the things for me that totally turned the page in my sharing my writing when I was living in Costa Rica, I guess, I wrote a piece that got published on a really sweet website called Tiny Buddha about a relationship experience that I'd had. And it felt so vulnerable to post, because it was like, these were the ways in which I was a shitty girlfriend, and here's what I learned, basically. And so many people were like, oh my God, that is so my story.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm not the only shitty girlfriend
Yeah.
who like thought that she was so spiritually enlightened, but actually she was just being an asshole.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
That's so great.
So that was the turning point. That was like, wow, maybe you should share more of this stuff.
Yeah. I get that.
And actually, like, even I think before I met you, you had posted something on Instagram that was actually very inspiring because it was like this raw post of just like, this is actually what I'm feeling, and or something like to that effect. And I was like, it like hit again, punched me in the chest because like, this is the fucking shit I want to be. Excuse my French. Sharing. This is the stuff I remember saying. I'm like, this is it. This is what I want to share. And like, I was like, okay, Ankati did it now. No, I'm gonna do it. And then I started doing that because it's like, I was like, everything in this world, right, has dark and light, and we get to choose what we want to make it. And what I couldn't stand about social media was like, it was these constant highlights. And even recently, where I've been like in this vulnerable, tired state, like I'm still on social media, and like these people are like traveling to this place and Peru and these Fiji Islands, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I'm here in this like winter place and blah. I'm just working all the time. So it was like kind of feeling down, but it's like, again, those are just like, it's not always reality, right? Like these are like little slivers, and I just wanted to perpetuate that. I wanted to change the story of like what Instagram had to be. And just be like, yeah, like some days it's magical. Like I got like a bunch of opportunities today. I made some money. Today I feel like crap. And I had paralyzing anxiety. You know, and like I looked in the mirror and wasn't proud of the man I was. You know what I mean? So thank you, number one. And I mean, I just think that's why it's so like, I mean, because kids are inundated with this stuff. Like you can't escape it. Like at least when we were in high school, it's like, okay, you go home, like you like hide in your room, be an introvert, or leave me alone.
Yeah, you go on
Now you scroll.
aim,
Oh
and
my God,
like
that's
Down the
worse.
internet. You're
And-
like,
What are you doing in there?
and
Nothing.
your mom's like, Kate, I was on the phone.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, like, I get off the phone.
You couldn't do both.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, well, and then again, we like put on our nice faces and we go out into the world and we do our things, and then we go home and we're totally by ourselves.
Yeah. It's a scary world now.
But this is what we do, because we want to encourage like this just real and rawness, and no one's perfect at it. Some days I'm good at it. Some days I put on a mask and walls in front of my heart. But I mean, that's what we want to encourage, right? Is the practice of how do I feel?
Yeah. I'm sharing it, not being
I
afraid
am
to.
a brown chameleon today.
We joked, a few of my friends and I, that we were gonna make buttons like into t-shirts that said "Stop and Feel,"
Oh.
so you could just be like, "Hey, how you doing?
Is there
Stop and Feel."
question? Is that? Actually, I don't even want to say that. Like, it just makes me
Oh,
think of
geez.
something. Stop and feel. And you're pointing right here.
Yeah.
Was that like a
It's true.
double innuendo, or is that just?
No, that was
sick
actually
mind?
just conveniently where I would put my button. It'd be right on my heart.
Bye,
Oh
guys.
my God.
Stop and Feel. It's
Probably
good.
should
Stop.
have.
Right there.
Should have kept that one
Just
to
right
myself.
there.
Oh my gosh.
We could, when we design the t-shirt someday, we could put it in a heart right on
Yeah, to make it
Yeah.
really obvious.
the. Yeah, really obvious.
There you go.
Um.
Oh my goodness.
So as we're on this topic of really trying to lean into like the feeling and like not every day is easy, what are some like personal challenges that you go through with your journey right now? Like what are some of the things like don't get super detailed, like whatever you want to share, but like what are some challenges? Because again, the whole point of this podcast is like we got business owners that are out here, and regardless of what Instagram looks like, it's not rainbows and ponytail or
Ponytails.
it actually is ponytails, but
Always
I
ponytails.
had my ponytail today.
but that there's like success is like all over the place, like so there's some like shit there.
Yeah.
Even if it looks like you're successful and you're doing this and this and this and this, what else is in there?
Yeah. I think what is present right now anyways, like I said this morning, is the dance between like what I'm sharing in the world, you know, what's like being asked of me as far as, oh, will you bring a sound healing to this thing, or will you like do this kind of workshop, or will you, you know, leading teacher trainings is a big one for me. And like, what's the reality of what my heart, soul, body are needing right now? I think this is a thing with being an entrepreneur or being a business owner, is there really isn't a roadmap.
Nope.
So every day is like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this in the way that feels truest to me, that feels sustainable for me? It feels like there's kind of this seesaw game that goes on where every once in a while I get a little too far over to the other side of paying attention to what other people are doing, paying attention to what what suit of chameleon I should wear, you know, in order to be a yoga teacher or like be a whatever in the world. And then I like look over and I'm like, oh, I feel like I lost myself somewhere along there. Like I've lost contact with my sense of center. And usually that's when I'll like get sick or hurt myself or like whatever, find myself doing something that I'm like, I don't want to be doing this. Why did I do this? And that, like, that's a shitty feeling. You're like, oh, I think I kind of abandoned myself a little bit. And we can do that professionally. We can do that in relationships. Like, you get really swept up in like the dating world, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a second.
2 years later.
Where am I? Yeah. You know, I have like a closet full of all the different chameleon suits, and I have lost track of what's most important to me. So that feels like it's at like the very root of all those daily struggles. And you know, I think I know what I need to do to stay centered. It's like, can I just get my ass in gear to do it? Yeah. And can I be really honest with myself when things feel shitty, that it's because I did it, it's nobody else's fault, it's not circumstantial, it's mine.
Yeah, it's powerful.
We're all like,
yeah,
it's my fault.
Damn it.
Well, we've been talking for a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, final two things. What's in the future for Ankati?
Stuff. Period.
There you heard it first. Stuff.
Writing a poetry book, or putting together a poetry book.
Yeah.
Right, with more poetry than I'm writing. Yoga teacher trainings. Come do yoga teacher training with me.
When's the next one?
This summer. We start July 15th, I believe. 4 weeks, 200 hours. We'll get to know each other real well.
Where can the people sign up? Where can they find you?
Barsoul.com.
Okay.
You can find more information also on my website, which is ankatiday.com. Always doing lots of fun workshops. I'll be at Liar's Bench doing some booty on the morning of March 23rd. Be doing a sound bath at Shiloh Farm on March 24th.
Yeah.
2 ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So yeah, you can keep up with all my different events, read some of my poetry.
Awesome.
That sort of stuff.
And on Instagram, right?
And on the Instagram and on the Facebook.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Ankati, what does
It's
it
been
mean
epic.
to have a wild heart?
Oh man. I think it goes back to what we talked about like many deep dives ago, which is that willingness to show up fully open, like all in, all there, all present, all flavors, all the time.
I like that.
That's so good.
All flavors.
all the time.
All the time.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So fun. It was like your story plus a therapy session plus.
That was a lot.
That was
good.
great. That's so
That's
good.
great.
I hope you guys enjoyed that because like.
We will tag you on here so that people can find you.
Yeah, we'll put you in your websites and things.
We're all having a lot of feelings now.
We're having a lot of feelings and
We're
we
in
don't
our
want to.
process.
We don't want to get off of our stools during the end of the live videos, so we're just still sitting here.
All right.
All right, we're gonna end it now.
All right, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in.